Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. My guest today is a familiar face to hear on 30 Minutes and Radnor Studio 21. Dr. Hillard Pouncy is a good friend. He is a political and social researcher, an author, a speaker. In previous shows, we have demonstrated again that we agree on practically nothing, but I always enjoy our visits. Welcome again. Always good to see you. In past visits, early on, I was usually able to prepare for our little tete-a-tetes, prepare notes, do a little research, and be prepared to have an honest, straightforward, intellectual discussion with you. Somehow that broke down a few interviews ago, where you just came in and announced what you were going to talk about, and I had to trail you as best I could. Today is no exception. I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. Yeah. So would you announce to me, disclose to our viewers, what would you like to talk about?
My trip to the National Museum of African American History.
Where is that?
It's in Washington, D.C. It's a new museum. Mm-hmm. It's right in the shadow of the Washington Monument. And it looks like some people claim it looks like some kind of arc of some sort. It's brown colored.
I've seen pictures of it. Yes,
it's a beautiful thing in the many senses of beautiful, beautifully conceived and designed and operated, and it's free, completely free, sort of like a Disneyland once you're in. And the secret is, how do you get in? And so one of the secrets is, if you just show up.
Yes.
They often have whatever that's called in off-Broadway things, where you have no shows, people didn't show up, and so they just give you a ticket and you walk right in. Mm-hmm. The way you're supposed to do it is you go online and you say, 2 years from now, if I'm still around, I'd like to come to the museum.
It's booked that far in advance?
It's booked that far in advance.
Wow.
But the reality is, some of us have memory problems or whatever, and they don't show up. So they have quite a handful of available slots, right? And so if you just walk right up, you can often walk right in.
What happens when you get in the building?
That's the magic point. That's the magic point. That's why this is, you would think this would be just a dull show.
That's my expectation, yes.
There's a joke waiting there. We're not going to take the low road. I've been to the museum, and my life's been changed.
How so?
In an important way. That's what we're going to talk about. So, to give a little background, there are several museums that I find really impressive, and one of them is the Holocaust Museum, also in Washington. And if you haven't been there, the essence of the museum is it helps you understand what it would have been like to have been in mid-20th century Germany if you were Jewish. And the journey of the museum is, your life starts out in this normal way, and by the end of this journey, there's a pretty good chance that you're dead. And the museum explains this change that your society is going through, and it's pretty clear what's happening. You're going into a kind of earthly hell, in effect, and it's very good at doing that. And it's got the but it's also good at imparting serious historical information. But the main thing is a kind of visceral experience of what would it have been like to be there. So the African American Museum takes that metaphor and goes with it. So the first thing you do in this museum is you get in a huge elevator and you go down. And at the bottom of the museum, way below the ground, you don't see it when you walk in, you're in the beginnings of slavery. And you're on the other side of the Atlantic, and you're told about how the slave trade works, but not in a way that would make, if every elementary school were like this, people would want to stay in elementary school. It's just a brilliant...
Just a curiosity question. What's the period? How far back does it go? Where does it start?
1600s, at the onset of the transatlantic slave trade. And the point of the museum is that what most of us know, but we don't know we know, which is that, look, this was a big business. The triangular, sugar, rum, slaves, all that stuff, and people and all actors in this thing made a lot of money, including locals in Africa. And that's a known story. It's just that it's told in this visual way, important way, and it's sort of you are there thing. So you kind of get it. Okay, I'm going to go overseas in a slave boat. Then the next level up is slavery. We've institutionalized slavery in our country. It's a kind of production. It's a social system. It's working in high gear, just doing great. And unlike the slave trade, millions of people are not dying anymore. Millions of people are being born, and the country's prospering. And then it goes at the next level to the post-Civil War period, and what Reconstruction was like initially, but more importantly, how instead of an enslaved a society embracing slavery, we now have become what the museum calls a separated society, segregation. And it's, and because we're looking backwards, this is all so clear. Like, well, yeah, you could put a sugar coat on that thing, but essentially we were a separate nation. And it goes into what that means, and it's pretty clear-eyed about it. And then the magic happens. There's another level. You come up to the ground floor. And here, the museum doesn't know what's going on. It's got all this mixed stuff going on, like athletes protesting the nation as it is, Martin Luther King producing, social change. You can imagine what it's dealing with, but it doesn't have this story. Like it's all good or it's all bad. It's a mixed verdict, and it doesn't have this one phrase that would capture like segregated nation, slavery, or the slave trade. Nothing. It's just a thing, and that's why I want to talk about this, because the question is, for that museum, if we were to do what you do on a good college course, what should the fourth floor on the museum be talking about? Where are we as a nation, given where we started? And I actually have a view about that, and that's what I want to talk about. So what I want to say, and this is all now relevant, because as we do our show, athletes are protesting. The American president has been accused by some of being the first white president, which it's just too good.
I hadn't heard that one.
It's a new book by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's his way of saying he thinks the president might be
He's a racist.
Well, it might have a problem or two. And my view is that in a conversation like we're having, you could spend several enjoyable moments going back and forth over, did you see this? Did you see that? What do you think about some daily event? But I think that if you could step back a bit, which is what that museum invites us to do, and say, what is this all about? What are we going through right now? And it isn't just in the last half year or the last year, but in our lifetime is what it's really about. And here's what I think. I think we're watching the end of a 20th century America. It's taken another couple of decades into the new century to really put that thing to rest. But in certain movies, right, like, I don't know if you've seen the Terminator movies, but in certain movies, they're trying to make a point about something is not going gentle into that good night. And in the Terminator movies, the robot's in a molten metal bath, and he's screaming and he's flailing about, but he's dying, right? And so that to me is what this has been all about. That our nation, the way we were operating, is going away, and something new is emerging. And in those moments of transition, things can be very confusing, as at the fourth level of the museum. Now, my own view is that a guy named Patterson, Orlando Patterson, he's still alive. He's a sociologist at Harvard, and he's controversial. You either hate him or you love him. I happen to love him. And he wrote a book called The Ordeal of Integration. And the problem with the book was that people said, well, what integration? If you drive through most of the city, neighborhoods aren't, dramatically integrated. I mean, you can usually find pockets of different groups, maybe,
right.
Not the perfect segregation we had over 100 years ago, but it's not, why would you call it an integrated nation? And he was trying to explain this idea that it's imaginable that we could be an integrated society. It's imaginable, and the effort to achieve it isn't some panacea. The closer we get to this possibility, the more problematic it becomes. Are you following that?
I'm following it, but I'm thinking as well. I can do both. I can listen and think at the same time.
Right.
What is also happening, I think, and maybe this is the point you're going to make,
Right.
is that as we go through this period of transition, agonizing, disruptive, painful transition, it's not just a black issue.
Yeah, good. Sorry.
It is a much broader diversity issue as we move from being a homogeneous nation dominated by one class, one race, and so on, into something else that we still don't have a handle on, whatever that something else is going to be. We know it's not going to be the way it was. It can't be.
Right. I think that's right.
The genie's out of the bottle on that one.
Right.
But it's the blacks, it's the immigrants, it's the Asians, and so on.
Right.
All of whom are having
Gender,
a direct,
It's,
exactly.
it's been,
and I can say, as someone who was more than a baby boomer,
you're a boomer.
That's tough for me.
I'm pretty sure you're a boomer.
To adjust to that. It's really tough for me to adjust to that.
Then our work here is done. We've captured what I think is.
So I'm just wondering, as other people go through the museum, and I'd be interested in knowing how many of the visitors are black or minorities, and how many. Is it really?
Yeah,
that's great.
It's the wildest thing. You in the context, right? Outside the museum, on any given day, you can see enough to make a case for a divided nation or some metaphor of great social unrest and conflict. And inside the museum, it's 50-50. I mean, I didn't see. They have these groups coming in there, like church groups and stuff like that. I didn't see Boy Scout groups going through, or Chamber of Commerce groups. But essentially, it looked like Reading Terminal Market. And
that raises another question. Are the displays, exhibits, the animations, whatever they're using to tell the story, geared only for adults, or are they also geared for younger people?
Oh no, there's this thing going on in public art that I marvel at. For example, it's at one point they have this thing where you can get in what looks like a Buick or some other General Motors product. It's the cutout. You can sit in the seat, and you got the bench seats that are, and the old-fashioned steering wheel. And the goal is you got to travel 3,000 miles. And if I did it, I would have it do a roll the dice, and you can either be Asian American, African American, white American, and it would pick a decade, 30s, 20s, 80s, or whatever. But in 3,000 miles of travel from Maine to Alabama, if you're African American in the 20s, that's going to be a hell of a trip.
That's fascinating.
Right. And so kids can get into that because it's a video game. It's just a game of how do I get to a bathroom that I can go to, and then another display has this thing where you see, it just looks like a dance floor, but if you're brave, you can learn how to do these dance steps the kids do.
Yes.
And I sat there and I watched, I'm guessing grandmothers from Iowa. I'm not making it up. I felt very comfortable, whatever it is they were doing. so yeah, these ideas around art and at a commercial scale or wholesale scale that are in service of some understanding of our society.
Yeah.
That's really interesting stuff.
That raises another issue because everything we've talked about so far, the turmoil, the agony of change,
right.
is occurring on both coasts.
Oh, yeah.
It's not something that's being experienced in the middle of the country.
No, it's all over. And what's going?
No, it is not something.
And in fact,
not with the same intensity.
But if there's any possibility to this hypothesis, then what you can imagine is that there's some of us who are looking a little, shall we say, to the past, and either anxious about how past issues are going to get fixed, or maybe I like things the way they were in the past, and I'd not like to let go of them. So, if in my community, African Americans, there can be this tendency to say, "Look, I survived in this country by anticipating, travail. So I'm not trusting any happy talk about it's all going to be integrated in some kind of and you can find evidence for why you need to keep hold to a vision from the past, and it's." My own take on the Trump phenomenon is that it's having a hard time letting go. Can't imagine the future. I feel unease about where we are.
You're saying you're postulating that that's the way Trump feels?
I can imagine that.
Or his supporters?
His supporters. He fascinates me, by the way.
He fascinates me too.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
But we seem to be forgetting something that was so obvious. He said it. He's still a deal maker. And unless you understand the mind of a deal maker, you're not going to understand Trump. His unpredictability is part of his strategy. He knows exactly what you may not agree with it, but he knows exactly what he's doing and what he believes the outcome is going to be. He's taken a look at the options, he's taken a look at the probable outcomes, and he's made a decision. He's a deal maker. He is a superb negotiator. Sitting at the head of the country and the world makes the country and the world very uneasy about that.
So I was interjecting
because they think they don't know where he's going.
Yeah, I'm interjecting because
let me write that down too. Yeah.
Because I actually did a little homework on this because I know the art of the deal. I know the view that there's a science or there's
an art and a science. There truly is.
Well, I checked. I did it, and so what I found out is
you've got that sheepish smile on your face.
Absolutely,
which means you're about to hit me with something.
because there's a lot at stake, right? So one of his first big deals was in New York around publicly funded housing. I think he rescued a hotel. Did you remember? You know this deal he did?
Oh, go ahead. No, I don't.
There was some hotel, I think it might have been in Manhattan, that had not done well. And he said, if you give me tax abatements, I'll fix that hotel. Right. And in exchange for the tax abatement, I'll do revenue sharing with the city. It's a win for me, a win for you. Right?
Sounds good.
Well, yeah, you know what happened with that deal? The first couple of years, he would pay the city something, and that got a good press. Then, when the hotel really started doing well, the city started looking for the revenues, the promised revenues, profit sharing. Couldn't find the books, couldn't find the money, couldn't find anything, and instead of fixing it, he eventually sold the thing rather than comply with the city. They still had to spend quite an amount of time and figuring out what the heck happened here. And so if you're going to claim that out of that activity there was a serious mind at work, plotting carefully, etc., then it's a criminal mind.
I would agree. I would come probably to the same conclusion you have without knowing more than you've just told me.
It's in the public record. If you Google
without knowing more than you just told
me.
I
know that's and I would feel the same way about any account on camera, for benefit.
But before you said it, that was what was going through my mind. That sounds criminal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So either we've got a person who is not in the service of the deal may not be moral, or somebody who doesn't actually.
We could go off on that tangent about human frailty and what we've had in the White House before, not just immediately before, but before and before and before.
Right.
They've all been flawed because we are flawed, all of us. You want to get to the second topic you wanted to discuss today?
Yeah, but let's before we do that, as the sun sets slowly in the west, note something, which is that usually we have quite a bit of fun agreeing to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do that today.
No, I think we have found some common ground. Yeah.
I miss the good old days.
I'm not. Well, let's go for a second one.
I don't think we're going to. I think.
I'll find a way to disagree with
Well,
you.
but just for its own sake isn't.
Okay.
Isn't,
All right.
So
We don't want to disappoint them.
So the two of them. I know your fans. I've met. They talk to me after the shows.
If my parents were alive, they'd be watching.
I tell you. No, I actually know people who are big fans of your show.
I know. You've told me. Yeah.
They love you. They love you.
Yeah, but they love watching you. I'm your foil. I just show up to give you somebody to talk to.
What can I tell you? All right. So let's cut to the chase. Let's cut to the chase. So this is actually really good. So if you look back on our election coverage.
Yes.
What I liked about that is we said, what's going on here? And we made predictions all along the way. Mm-hmm. And one of the observations that I made, and apparently you don't remember, was called the Dancing Hillarys.
You're right, I don't remember that.
The Dancing Hillarys was one of the coolest things that happened during that election. So now through the social media, you can do what they call flash mobs. You can arrange for a group of people to act in a certain way at a certain place for a certain purpose. And in the middle of North Carolina, I think it was, there was a Hillary flash mob. And the gimmick of the mob was millennial-age women dressed like Hillary, who to them would be a grandmother or some impossibly old woman.
That's not a very pleasant image, but go ahead.
I can only report the news.
Yes.
And so they showed up with I think Hillary was known for her pantsuit, right?
Probably.
Right. So they all had on pantsuits, and they were accomplished dancers, and they'd put on a show, and the subliminal message was Hillary is okay for our people
She's
our
cool.
age.
Yeah.
Right. She's cool. And I said that's important. That's important. I highlighted it, and the reason I thought it was important is because I thought it meant that millennial age women were envisioning empowerment for themselves, some kind of thing like anybody would.
Right.
Yeah. But what I missed was that the production of a flash mob through social media for political purposes was the bigger deal than.
Yes.
Look, why are you saying yes?
Because it became so pervasive. Everybody was using the same technique. It was part of both campaigns, all campaigns.
Right, but in a particular
largely because they could count on camera crews showing up to cover it.
I think you might have derailed on that one. I think for me, maybe who might have note how others might see it. But for me, what the takeaway was this interesting stuff going on with this Facebook business where foreign actors, overseas actors, through their bots and automatic behavior online, were able to get supporters of a political candidate. We're not going to have to worry about yours or mine, but the idea that you could have people at a political rally believing that they're there because people who think like them care about the same issues, and in fact they're being manipulated and manipulated by a foreign power. Now that's the...
as a student of society, politics, socioeconomic, etc., does that bother you?
I'm sorry?
That the populace can be manipulated so easily by technology and the people behind technology?
So here's the thing.
Does that concern you?
Here's the thing. And I talked about
will I get a direct response to my question?
Of course I will, but it sounds to me like what they call a baited question or clickbait.
No, not at all.
I mean, first of all, when you're in the shower in the morning and thinking to yourself, you don't honestly say things like, this kind of thing happened. No, this is a very dangerous, unsettling phenomenon. And I'll tell you why, in case you're just doing this to make, to get a point.
No, I'm quite serious about the question because of your credentials.
Sure. I asked my son about it because at one point in his life
he's a millennial.
Yes, he is, but he also was part of a startup company that figured out how to use Facebook to motivate to commercialize stuff.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. And I asked, I says, didn't you guys figure that out? And he said, and he was sniffy about it. He was upset, and he said, we never lied to people, and that's the point. Are you? The importance of a society like Excuse me?
I guess we'd have to talk about what that means. We never lie to people. Does that mean a bald-faced lie, or does it also mean possibly either manipulating the facts or omitting certain facts to influence the conclusions that an individual or a group of individuals would? It is clearly manipulation. The media is manipulation.
So let me put this back on you. So unless I'm misunderstanding.
Are you going to stay at the table, or are you going to wander off someplace?
Unless I'm missing something, here's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
Unless I get it wrong.
Okay.
It's within the realm of acceptable behavior
All right.
for a foreign government to intentionally interfere, operate.
How could you possibly have heard that in what I said?
Because that's what I was worried about. Those were the bots that created false rallies.
They weren't the only bots who created the false rallies.
Well,
They weren't. I agree with you. Here again, we found some way to agree on something. I do not agree with. It's abhorrent to me that an outside, a third party, could come into this country and try to manipulate our elections. I agree with that.
It's actually
it shouldn't happen.
actually illegal.
But it is illegal.
We'd
But
like to not have that happen.
There's almost no way to stop it. We haven't figured out a way to screen it, to stop it. We keep talking about it, but there's really no motivation to stop it. A lot of lip service given to it, particularly by the people who are accessories, namely Facebook and Twitter and all of the others who make money at this. So you really want to go down that?
I don't understand you anymore. I'm assuming that you're doing this just to.
No. I'm expressing my true belief, my true feelings.
You think that it's in Facebook's interest to take money from any entity on the whole globe?
They've been doing it.
Yeah, but then they, first of all, they didn't just do it. Twice during the campaign, they notified the FBI that they thought they were being manipulated by overseas powers.
Okay,
the issue was.
If you can tell me with a straight face that they did that, they voluntarily did that out of patriotism, whatever.
Well,
you'll have to show me the evidence. I would suspect they did it because they were concerned that they were going to be found out, and so they preempted the
whatever
disclosure.
their motive is, they did it. And the second element.
Wait, whatever their motive, the motive counts.
Well, let's move forward. The facts were that
I think we found another way to disagree with one another.
Yeah, but
we're back on track.
Yeah, but
we're back on track.
But I don't like cartoons. I don't like disagreeing just for its own sake.
No.
To me, this is actually.
Why do you keep saying that I'm doing it just for?
Because otherwise, I would have to think something else about why you would think these things, and I don't want to do that. Let's just take this one, and then we'll have to come back. And I thought this was a fairly
I think we're
simple
almost
exercise.
out of time.
But yeah, the first time there were two levels of activity. There were manipulations of conversations in certain ways, and they reported that. But what they were protecting were their ad buys, and only after the problems of this hacked by the Russians and their friends come to light did that element of Facebook say, "Oh, now we'll reveal what happened with our ad buy." So they thought they were protecting their commercial secrets or something.
I really don't know where you're going with this.
Well, you'll just have to wait till the next time I show up.
No, by then we'll have something better to talk about.
This is the Dancing Hillarys is a big thing. I mean, I thought it was obvious and funny, and it turns out that we're in great danger if ordinary people, for some reason, think it's quite all right and quite normal that American companies would willingly participate in the destruction of their own society. I don't
And I
understand
agree
that.
with you on that. I agree with you on that. I don't know how you took my words, twisted them, and turned them to your purpose.
The fortunate thing about videotape is we can have a cup of coffee and take a look at the things you said this
Well, then
time.
that would make 4 of us watching the show. I welcome that. We've doubled our audience. I'm really more interested in learning a little bit more about the project you're working on, the progress you're making in New York, and why you are more optimistic today than you were last time we visited.
Now, this is a fairly okay. Well, I can do this. So
yeah, I'm fed up with the other stuff.
No. So
you only have 2 minutes to do it.
So in this I'll actually try to make your show make sense. The connection between what we were just talking about, which were operations on the social media and public communication issues. A variant of that is, can you use the smartphones and other gadgets of this new the tools that people use to operate in the social media world for other good things, like helping people get jobs,
right.
helping people navigate social systems. And the experiment that I'm hoping to run is to determine if that actually is possible. Our goal is to put smartphones and the more important thing is free data plans in the hands of some New Yorkers, who are unemployed, et cetera, and see how well we were able to connect them to the world of work, help them retain their jobs, and beyond, wage growth, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. The idea is that in the old days, in a good neighborhood, people looked out for each other. Well, can we do a virtual version of that? Can we create job clubs, social support systems by just operating our cell phones in different ways? Now, the typical teenagers playing games on the thing, right, or watching fantasy sports or something. Mm-hmm. Well, does that same powerful tool, can we use it for social good? In parallel to the discussion we were previously having, it's pretty obvious we can use these kinds of tools and the ways we connect these tools, social media, for quite destructive purposes, at least politically. The question is, are there other things we can do with them? And
but is the study that you and your colleagues are trying to get off the ground, is that the first of its kind?
No. In fact, as soon as these
devices have been used.
As soon as these devices came along, there were certain people who saw right away what you could do with them. And the first to see it, by the way, were social psychologists. Uh-huh. They were using these phones to work with people who had addictions or smoking issues, right, things like where you need supervision.
Mm-hmm. And support.
And support, yeah. So they pioneered it. People who were trying to help people who were traveling connect with their friends, mm-hmm, they were involved in it. But this would be using connecting these things to the delivery of social services. And the big news so far are these, what they call nudges, using these phones to remind people to go to meetings or pay your child support, mm-hmm, or, operate in certain ways.
It's not too dissimilar from medication adherence programs.
Yeah,
where
right.
you get
right.
an alert, you get a reminder,
right.
And in fact, in some instances,
right.
there's an incentive.
But the nudge metaphor is a top-down. It's and I love the word nudge because it's what it implies, a parent with a child. Right. But this is more an embracing adult-to-adult conversation of we're helping each other, or we have a common goal here. We'd like to.
You're getting closer with this?
Yeah.
The project?
Yeah.
The funding?
Yeah.
Well, as always, it's a pleasure.
It's a great pleasure.
A great pleasure to be here, right, with you,
yeah,
and to explore all these
I'm fascinated
pockets.
At the end where that show ended, because I was you actually invited me to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I enjoyed that. Thanks a lot.
Good to be with you.
Always a pleasure.
As always. My guest today has been Hillard Pouncy, a good friend, an authority on just about everything. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I am Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.